I'm going to pick and choose a couple of examples from the for loops lab here. We are going to skip count up because that should be pretty easy with a for loop. A lot of this is taking what was in the while loop lab and converting it to a for loop and then being able to compare those. So we're going to skip that part. Let's look at the multiply up. So if you'll remember the while loop lab, we have this one that also does a multiply up like this. So I'm going to copy this as reference, but we're not going to use the while loop. We'll use a for loop. And like I have up here, there are three parts of a for loop that it can be good to remember. We have a initialization. That can be any kind of code. It's just something that's executed before the loop starts. We have the looping condition. That's basically what is this right here in the while loop. We have a condition, it'll loop, it'll continue looping while this is true. And then an update action. This occurs every time once the loop has gone through once. It'll do that action, it'll go back to the top of the loop and continue again. So converting this into a for loop, well, we have a counter initialized to 1. We can basically make that our new initialization. We have while count is less than or equal to 128, we can move that condition here. And then finally the update action, we want to make sure that the count is always multiplied by 2 afterwards, and we don't need that final semicolon. So then we're taking this whole thing and making it shorter. Now what do we do inside? All we were really wanting to do was output the count. And so now this entire thing is the same as here, but now it has the perk of not really having to remember to increment the count because it's part of the for loop. You're going to do that anyway. With while loops, it's very easy to forget to add to your count or do whatever it is that will eventually cause the loop to end. So it's very easy to write infinite loops with your while loops. So that's an example of just doing that multiply up. We're going to skip the summation. You can probably figure that out yourself. That was also one of the while loop labs, but using while loops to sum instead of for loops. But down here, we're going to look at the strings and characters part. So with this part of the program, we're going to have the user enter a string and then enter a letter to count. And then we're going to use a for loop to look at every item in the string and try to count that letter, the letter I. So there's a lot of documentation in here because, for one, a uppercase character and a lowercase character are considered different. Uppercase A and lowercase a by the computer considers those different things because they have different number codes behind the scenes. So if we want to make it case sensitive, we can set everything to lowercase when we're searching, or if we want it to be case sensitive, we could say only look for lowercase i's and not the uppercase i's. Also, in this case, we have I like pizza. It has spaces in it, so we won't be able to use cn like this, whatever that's going to be. We'll need to do the get line. So that is down here with that. So we can enter a phrase and then use get line. So starting off, we need a string for text, a char for look for letter, and an int for letter count. We'll ask the user to enter a full string of text. We are going to do cn.ignore, and I'll show you why here in a moment. And we'll do get line, read from cn, the console in, and store it into text. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, and we'll do option number 4, and notice that, oh sorry, I think I hit the wrong one. No, it should have displayed that. Oh, I have while loops currently running. There we go. So it says enter a string, but then it takes me back to the program again. It is supposed to do an input right here. It's supposed to pause. But it doesn't because I'm using this type of CN stream beforehand, it could still be storing information in its buffer, and then by the time we get to get line, it just pulls in whatever was in there. So we use cn.ignore to get around that. Now it'll ask me to enter the string, and I can enter whatever I want. And then at the moment, the rest of the program isn't written. So next, and we'll get there, look for letter character, and then we're going to say letter count is 0, because starting off we haven't found any letters. We need to initialize it to something. And now we'll use a for loop to iterate over that string and look at each letter. So this is kind of where it's more specialized. We'll have the for loop. We're going to do some things. Remember from the variables lab, I think, or the if statement lab, that we were getting the size of a string using the .size function call. So to initialize this, we're going to say int I is 0. We're having a nice little counter variable here. While I is less than the size of the text that the user entered, and add 1 to I each time. So I is going to be which letter of text. We're going to look at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Each of these. So see, letter 0 is I, letter 2 is L, because the space counts as one character as well. So we're going to iterate over those. We can look at what the letter, what one letter of the string is by using this subscript operator, the square brackets. So if I did this, this would just output the entire thing. And it's not counting anything right now. It'll just output each letter on its own line. So next, let's say letter I is whatever that text is. Is this current letter the one we're looking for? So if text at this position, if text number 0 or text, character number 1 or 2, if that is equal to look for letter, we're going to add 1 to the letter count. And at the very, very end, we'll say letter count matches, or found that letter this many times. So we run this, run the program. I like pizza. I'm going to do lowercase I. It will count twice because this one is uppercase. So it finds it here, 2 matches. If I want to check if it's case insensitive, I could say if to lower text I is equal to lower look for letter. We set them both to lowercase so that we can compare, because we don't know if the user entered uppercase or lowercase anyway. So then here we have 3 matches. This one now matches. And to make this a little bit clearer, I'm going to put anytime there's a match, and then we'll do an end line here. So let's do 4. I like cats. Cats should live with me. I don't know. We will count the letter, let's do I again still. So then anytime it finds a match, it'll output it here. So that's just kind of for our reference. Okay, so I wanted to at least go through that one because since it's working with strings and characters, it's a little bit more complicated, but otherwise the rest of them should be pretty easy to figure out. And that is all for this for loops lab.